Positioning is everything for a company, really. For the longest time, people thought of us as a public tool, and we still are, but increasingly we are a data as a service tool. Climate impacts don't care about politics. There's no governor and mayor in this country who says that they don't care about flooding that is wiping out their towns or power outages. When we think about global climate change, and we want to get down to a specific intersection, satellites, sensors, and often...
Welcome back to Clean Techies, the #1 podcast for climate tech entrepreneurs. I'm Somil.
And I'm Silas. Each week, we publish the secrets to success from investors, founders, operators, and experts in climate tech around the world. Building a startup is hard. Building a climate tech startup is even harder. But we make it a little bit easier.
We put a lot of effort into these shows, so we hope you enjoy. Don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and let us know who you think we should have on next.
With that, let's get into today's episode. Hey everyone, quick note for you. You're currently listening to the free preview of this episode. If you'd like the full thing, the full shebang, go over to our Substack. That's cleantechies.substack.com/subscribe and become a paid subscriber. Any paid subscription gets you full access to the show on the Clean Techies Substack.
Today we have a very cool episode, especially going into 2025 and the political landscape that we expect. Founders are absolutely going to need to figure out how to work with governments, especially those in climate tech who require government support for their success and the implementation of their solutions. So today we have the huge opportunity to talk to Julia Kumari Drapkin, founder and CEO of ISeeChange, a data platform that combines resident-generated insights with AI to address climate adaptation challenges. So Julie's background as first a climate science reporter covering disasters like Hurricane Katrina actually inspired her to bridge the gap between people's lived experiences and actionable climate solutions. And you can see how her expertise in storytelling and data-driven insights really shape how ISeeChange is both the people-first organization and is able to work with these different stakeholders in government. Now, a little bit about ISeeChange. ISeeChange leverages ground truth data. So think stories, photos, observations from residents and combines that with sensors, satellite, and proprietary AI models. The platform delivers this data as insights to cities, counties, and utilities, enabling them to prioritize their real-time responses and even go as far as long-term infrastructure design. So what they've done is they've created a feedback loop whereby communities and decision makers are incentivized to participate in it, and they can help build trust, improve climate outcomes, and unlock the value of this otherwise, sitting in siloed data. So we are hugely grateful to Julia and super excited to give all of you clean techies this episode. Anyway, enjoy the episode.
All right, Julia, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm lovely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. I will say it's not often that I get out energied, and I sufficiently feel out energied right now. So
more energy, more better. This is like renewable. It's clean
yeah,
energy.
yeah.
It's like
Oh,
good
fair.
food.
Wow.
Come on.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. And it's also, for Kentucky, it's a Friday afternoon, so this is not top of the week or anything. This is after a marathon.
Yeah, we are cruising.
Yeah, amazing. And if you can't tell, anytime we have anyone who's come from media, I feel like it's always a more fun episode. So I think we're gonna have a good time.
Absolutely. I hope
Yeah.
y'all are driving somewhere awesome while
Yeah.
you're listening to us.
Amazing. So Julia, I know who you are, but the audience doesn't. Please, tell our clean techies, who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, so my name is Julia Kumari Drapkin. I'm the CEO and founder of ISeeChange. And we are a data platform that leverages resident-generated data ground truth, like people's stories, their photos, their text, their data. And we infuse it with our proprietary AI, and we deliver the insights to cities, counties, and utilities, the people who are responsible for managing our infrastructure as it has to manage 21st century climate change.
So let's add a little bit of context there. So what matters to them and what are you providing?
Yeah, so I think what matters to them and to us as residents is that there's no perfect data solution for understanding climate change impacts at a granular enough level to respond. Let me walk it back. When we think about global climate change and we want to get down to a specific intersection, a specific point, someone's home, a project that needs to go there, understanding that place over time. We've historically have 3 data points that can help us really zero in on the most important information. Satellites, they can see from space. Sensors, which are point source, but really hard to scale and often not providing critical context. And then that third data point is people. They can tell you a lot of information that is critically missing in our data infrastructure at this stage, but it's never all been connected in an efficient way for cities or utilities to ingest and operationalize. And when I say that, it means like responding to a flood event today, managing anything as banal as a storm drain that needs to be cleaned, and anything as emergency as a tropical storm that is flooding, many. And then that third bucket of reusing that information into infrastructure design so that we can manage those projects going forward.
So just as a general step back, let's understand, how does the tech work?
Yeah. So ISeeChange is really, really good at 3 things. One is we have incredible tools that residents can use to share stories and data that their utilities and cities need to manage infrastructure. So anything as banal as that storm drain, anything as emergency as a tropical storm event. We are scanning the photos, the text, the data. We're also ingesting all of the data that utilities or cities are already using. Like they may have a 311 system. Great, I'll take that. They have shelves of data that they've never used. Great, I'll take that. We ingest it into our AI and we deliver what we call ISeeChange insights. So most cities and utilities have a complaint-based system, which is first come, first serve, like this problem first, next this. And so what our AI is able to do is say, you need to prioritize here. Here's the root cause of the issues that are being framed here. Here are the things that your engineers or the field teams need to know before they go and close that road, deploy a temporary pump, check for this drain issue here. That intelligence then becomes an asset to the city and the utility for bigger picture grants or infrastructure design projects. So to date, ISeeChange has generated over $25 million in stormwater infrastructure investments in low to moderate income neighborhoods in New Orleans and Miami. And that's because they use these models that are underestimating impacts and making huge mistakes. So we've helped rescue projects that weren't going to make their benefit costs. We've helped double investments. We've helped the city of Miami go and increase their maintenance budgets, all with the data that is coming in through the ISeeChange tools.
So it's almost like enhancing the decision-making process.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's chaos in there.
Yeah.
And we're turning spaghetti into really prioritized actions.
Great. So all of this is happening, presumably by you guys for the first time. That's incredible. For you personally, why do you think that this is, the big thing that will change things for them, right? As outsiders, we might not know the kind of value that this can provide. So, if, thinking about as people who are affected by natural disasters or even things that are, much more banal level, like you were saying, what is the tangible change that can be made?
When you think about any city or utility, on any given day, they are in survival mode. They don't have enough resources to manage the infrastructure that we have, let alone the resources they need to manage 21st century climate change. So their current systems have a lot of capacity, potentially. There's lots of siloed data that's living almost everywhere that nobody's actually creating intelligence out of. And that's not their subject matter expertise. That's not necessarily in their wheelhouse. They're literally whack-a-moling their way through these events. And that's not going to buy us the protection that we need. So we're coming in with our AI and our systems of ingesting data from residents. We're also ingesting the data that they're getting from other tools that they already use. And then we're making it way more efficient. So instead of just a long list of to-dos like you can imagine in your house, we're coming up with a list of prioritized to-dos, things that we know residents have flagged as really urgent. And then when we look at the modeling and we look at our AI, we can tell that this can be an emergency tomorrow during an event.
Wow. Well, I'd love to get into some of the specifics in a bit, but where are you guys in your journey? How long have you been in market and what stage?
Yeah. So it's funny. Some people will remember ISeeChange from its infancy when we were kind of just a project. We were working with NASA. We were on the radio. But we became a for-profit company in 2020. So we've been on the journey of being a tech company for about 4 years, coming in on 5. We're in our stride.
Wow.
We're in 3 major metro cities, and we're really excited to be growing really at this moment. Yeah, so
Wow.
we're at seed. We're raising a $3 million seed round, and we are getting investment from the federal government in our AI.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah.
So you as an individual, I know you come from a radio and media background. I'm sure, rolling back all the way to first job, Julia, maybe, climate tech entrepreneur, maybe or maybe wasn't in the books at that point in time. So what,
Yeah.
what was the journey, right? And maybe this podcast is full circle. Who knows? But
Yeah,
but
I think that that's part of ISeeChange's journey is definitely my journey to being a tech CEO. I mean, I started as a climate science reporter, and I just wanted to solve a problem, which was one that I'd seen all around the world, covering almost every story, which was that top-down, well-intentioned solutions are failing to meet and keep pace with local needs. So I covered Hurricane Katrina and the Asian tsunami in the same year, and like flash forward, we're still dealing with those same problems, right? People on the ground have incredible detail, knowledge of what is working and what is not, where, when, and how, and we're not translating that into intelligence for the people who need to respond at scale. So me growing into the leader of this company has also been a journey, and now I can crush it. But it took a minute. It did.
wow. I feel like one nugget that I picked up on was climate science media, obviously bias here, but climate science media has sort of this double or triple bottom where it's not just about the media, but it's how do you inspire change or how do you get people to activate, to do something. And so as a CEO, I'm sure that's an incredibly relevant skill. But
Yeah.
I want to dial the clock back a little bit. What was climate science media like back then, right? Because I'm
Mhm.
sure it's gone through its own
Oh
evolution.
yeah, I mean, in that regard, there is a journey even for us, and that's mimicking where we are. So back then, I couldn't go to a climate scientist, even though we were nearing 400 parts per million in the atmosphere. And I couldn't go into a scientist and say, "Hey, this woman, her garden just died, and that man's house flooded. Is that climate change?" And they'd go, "Well, maybe. We're not exactly sure. We can't back up the model, blah, 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 blah." And like, y'all, these people don't care about your blah, 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 blah. They want to know, is it or is it not? And in retrospect, our positioning on that was the right, which is it is physically impossible with this much carbon in the air for it not to be climate change. And at that time, climate scientists were so eggshell walking and they wouldn't be certain. And because of that lack of certainty, our legislators couldn't act. So one of the inspirations for ISeeChange was talking to the Office of Science and Technology Policy. And I'd be like, "Hey, what's the holdup? John Holder and your team, we just have billions of dollars in climate losses. Why can't we get adaptation through Congress?" And one of the brilliant people there said, "You know what? I can't go to a congressperson and say, this is how much climate change costs your district." And I was like, oh, same problem me.
Yeah.
I can't go to this person I've been interviewing and say to them and in my story that this is climate change. So fast forward, attribution science has come a long way. ISeeChange was collecting data about climate change the year that models actually suggest was the year you could see a signature every single day on the Earth.
Wow.
And we have an incredible record going back to that time, but we were just a radio show. So we built a website. People started to use it from all around the world, but it wasn't funded for years because people didn't care about climate adaptation back then.
Yeah.
I had regular jobs. I kept it running on the side. We got our first contract with NASA. And out of that contract, flash forwarding to the fact that we have a partnership with the largest SAR satellite company in the world today. Back then, I could see that actually the more valuable data was coming from the people, not the satellite.
Wow. There's so much history within that because you have to kind of take yourself out of where we are today and remember that there was it sounds like maybe also an inflection point at
Huge.
which certain things became possible. And so you were able to be in that position.
Right. Timing for running a business or launching a business is critical, right?
Right.
Being ahead of your time never helps. I have incredible survival skills to get to the point where, oh yeah, this is it right now. We're ready. But timing is everything for sure.
Okay.
I think we were waiting for our moment and the moment is here.
Amazing. And so I want to talk a little bit about the technology.
Sure.
Obviously, I'm sure AI was at the very least didn't hurt right? And the work that you do. It's been, especially if you look at what AI has meant for climate,
Hmm.
people try to talk about how AI is relevant for building decarbonization, electrification, which it is. But I
Hmm.
think the most potent use is where you can manipulate large stores of data to mean something. That is oftentimes most apt in climate and weather modeling. So NVIDIA has come out with these major developments. All this independent research is coming out, and I myself have taken a lot of look at it over the months and years at this point. So for you as an entrepreneur, how do you feel like the resurgence of AI is bleeding into your fundraising journey, your sort of
Hmm.
for-profit entity journey? How is that propelled, what I would hope has propelled you into
Yeah.
people paying more attention to the work that you're doing?
Climate tech founders are taking on a huge challenge. Not only do they need to know how to build a startup, but they also need to deal with hardware, have a strong handle on climate policy, know how to fundraise from diverse investor types. It's a lot.
That's why we made Clean Techies, the #1 podcast for climate tech entrepreneurs. In addition to our jobs, we devote 20 hours a week to producing this podcast for you. This way, you can learn from the people who have walked the path before you, learn from their mistakes, and gain insights on navigating this complex journey. If this mission resonates with you, we are asking for your help. It takes a lot of effort and it's not free.
If you are already a subscriber and want to help, start supporting us today by going to Substack and clicking Upgrade to Paid. Thanks for helping all the climate tech entrepreneurs like you.
Yeah, I mean, so we were, again, pretty early with AI even. We won the AI for the Betterment of Humanity Award from MIT.
Oh, there we go.
We did not have any data scientists on the team to be able to win that award. That was a
Wow.
huge moment because
That might have been a first for them.
yeah, no, I'm really grateful to them. I'm really grateful to the McGovern Foundation. If you're following them, they're doing great work. But that was a visioning opportunity for us to say, okay, we're collecting this incredible, rich data, seeing where AI was going to lead. Here's our roadmap. Here's what we want to do with this. And they're like, wow. And they gave us our first award. But it was a long slog to get to now. And I'd say that what AI has been doing for us, the latest with the open models, that are available, is that it's really allowing us to accelerate. So we can take all the easy stuff, plug it into those, and then really drill into the hard stuff, the stuff that we have learned in the trenches with our customers that requires subject matter expertise. The really, really hard stuff that we're doing that basically turns everybody into a sensor, that turns us into dialoguing with all the other data points in the world about change in our backyards. It's very powerful.
I think one of the most interesting things is the vectors in which we can collect data. People's perception of it has increased
Mm-hmm.
dramatically. Like obviously
Mm-hmm.
ChatGPT kind of made you realize more tangibly than anything else that there is data of yourself that people can now utilize, right? It might have been behind closed doors. And so obviously this is from a commercial point of view has always been applicable. I
Yeah.
think one of the most, oh, go ahead.
Well, I would say that process is happening for both our customers and individual users, right? So there's so much that we're perceiving about what's changing in our backyards that is super useful to our cities and our utilities. And likewise, our AI is now really bringing much more organization and intelligence to our customers' data. So they have lots and lots of data randomly not sitting around, and we're ingesting it and processing it and really turning it into things that they can use every day, that makes their community safer.
Definitely. I think one of the most interesting things is how you, as someone who came from presumably, at least as far as, like you said, AI, data, science, you came from sort of the science and technical background mixed with media, but not this data heavy knowledge base. So,
Mm-hmm.
as a CEO who inevitably has to reckon with the fact that you're doing things that are incredibly relevant from a data perspective, how have you changed and adjusted how you sell your company, right? Are you a AI first climate company? Are you a climate AI company? Like these are such small things, but these are the things that probably keep you up at night, right?
Yeah,
So
yes. And actually, you're just, kind of dovetailing into our morning conversation. Positioning is everything for a company, really. And, even when we talk about, GovTech or not GovTech or public sector, we're going to talk about that in a second, but positioning is everything. And, for the longest time, people thought of us as a public tool, and we still are, but increasingly we are a data as a service tool. We are ingesting data and making it extremely useful and pipelining it to the very specific use cases we know our customers need and that really keep them up at night. So those are the things that keep me up at night.
yeah,
So I'd say that the challenge historically with positioning as climate tech is that 97%, and maybe that number's changed, but of the money is going to mitigation, adaptation. And that is a huge problem. So positioning in climate tech has actually not been to our advantage. Positioning as a data company, increasingly, or an AI company, has been
Makes sense.
better. Yeah.
Yeah, and I asked that on the nose because I think AI washing is a thing, right? And you kind of see everyone saying, we are an AI this, and then you get into an investment conversation, and you're like, so what are your AI features? And they're like, data, right? So,
Yeah.
but I do think that for your work especially, and you're in a sector that is incredibly relevant, what was the value add of switching to a data as a service? What was the inflection point where you're like, wait a minute, is it the fact that investors maybe weren't listening? Was it the fact that maybe the utilities or governments or municipalities didn't understand unless you said it that way? Like, what was the tangible reason for
It's
really
more about
changing?
customers. I mean, to be honest, as a thriving company, what makes me win is focusing on my customers, not investors. Sorry, investors, but you know what I'm
Yeah.
talking. But so my customers, I want to have value for them on day one.
Okay.
And if it takes me a good minute to build up a community that's providing data instead of being able to ingest the data they have today, that takes a little bit too long to get to value prop, right?
Got
So
it.
now we're in a position where it can be like, cool, we will hoover your data. We will start there, give you value on day one. You can use our tools, which are very, very popular, but we could also use the tools you already have and not displace your current tools. And that's important in really risk averse customer segments like utilities or cities, water management districts as well. We've been working with them too. And they have invested in these tools they don't want to displace. So we are really in there providing much greater value, to the tools they already use. And that's been a real deal maker, not breaker, deal maker for our company to be able to say, day one, let's jam. We don't have to waste a lot of time like training the community. But if we bring on the community, then we have that flywheel of data that increases in value exponentially over time.
Makes sense. So we kind of, as everyone does, we dove into AI, but let's rewind a little bit and talk about the overall ecosystem in which you operate, because we were talking about this. GovTech can be a very controversial term, right? And November, this election only made it more controversial. So I'd love to hear from you as someone who operates in GovTech. How do you define it?
Well, I would say there's public sector, first of all, right? And, I would say that if you are in charge of a public good or asset, which really is key to unlocking climate mitigation and adaptation, you have to work with utilities. You have to work with cities and counties. You have to work with government. And, I'd say it has been like a reality check for a lot of folks who are coming in from pure, consumer SaaS positioning into climate, or just straight up SaaS, B2B SaaS, like to really get in here and say, okay, if I don't even understand these utility customers, how on earth am I going to sell them an energy product? That's just nuts. These are extremely risk averse sectors, but extraordinarily powerful. And once you unlock them, there's negative churn. It is an incredibly valuable long-term relationship customer that you get. And I'd say if we were going to even back up and hear like the kind of the assumptions around GovTech, quote unquote, it's long sales cycles, right? Enterprise sales cycles. If you're not paying attention to the fact that most real enterprise sales are relational and they take a while, then you are losing right now. Like you're not in the right space. I've had investors say, well, why aren't you in insurance? I'm like, okay, cool. I go talk to the insurance guys. They're like, hey, our sales cycle is just as long as yours. Can we write it on your contracts? So in other words, if you're working with a corporate enterprise client, customer, it is still the same sales cycle. It is long, it is relational, it is strategic, and there's very few people who are trained in it. We are now, so we can crush, but everybody else is kind of deluding themselves in climate if they don't think they have to deal with it.
So I want to understand that quickly. Is it that other industries, for example, like you said, insurance, very notoriously long sales
Healthcare,
cycle,
insurance.
healthcare, it exists, but for some reason people have this perception that
Yeah.
GovTech is just worse or inaccessible?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And as you kind of knock on the doors of the people, other founders, or even start to sell to those like adjacent customers that are quote unquote better or faster, you realize that the sales cycle is just as long. And so I think that what is great about utilities in cities is, again, that negative churn. Like it is a, hard to get contract, but it pays dividends to get them.
Okay. And like you said, negative churn makes it, entirely valuable relationship to begin with.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now thinking about not just GovTech as it sits, but now being in climate tech and GovTech, right? My assumption going into this conversation was that you were likely affected by political headwinds, right?
Yeah.
And might have that. But I think you brought up a point that there's actually a lot of political resilience in the work that you do. So can you tell me about that?
Yeah, I'm growing fastest in Republican-led cities and states.
Wow.
Like, climate impacts don't care about politics. There's no governor and mayor in this country who says that they don't care about flooding that is wiping out their towns or power outages. Even extreme heat waves are extraordinarily costly, and we cannot ignore those billions of dollars. Like every 3 weeks, the United States loses $1 billion in climate change impacts. And we are like a developed country. Like, so the losses are huge. It's an incredible market and an incredible opportunity. And so when the administration changed, I personally, for our company, was not worried. I am very worried about those who are in mitigation, who've been really only selling based on this language and these value props. Because there are other value props in adaptation that are completely being underestimated as in opportunities, frankly. Adaptation and mitigation are two sides of the same coin. From day one in ISeeChange, when we were a radio show, we were working in a town where half the town worked for Bill Koch's coal mines in rural Colorado. And, they even tried to kick me out. The Tea Party tried to kick me out, like pull our funding from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which funds, PBS and NPR. And we said, you know what? We're getting on the radio. I don't care if you don't believe in climate change. I don't care if you think Al Gore is a jerk, and I know you do. I want to talk about what's happening on your farm. I want to talk about, how is weather impacting your bottom line? That's where the conversation is. That's where opportunity is in mitigation. And we're coming in with that lensing to everything we do.
And so this sounds really interesting. I think especially in the past couple of weeks, we've seen, a lot of really smart people who we've had on the podcast. We always, I think, have gotten the advice that there are other macro trends that are big right now, right? National defense, onshoring, geopolitics. All of this feeds a certain ethos where, for example, you can brand climate tech that onshores technology and manufacturing as national defense or national security, right? So in your perspective, I don't know if there's any way it gets more specific, but in adaptation and mitigation, are there macro trends like you were talking about expanding outside of just the climate comfort zone? Are there other trends that you see either yourself attaching to or that are prevalent?
Yeah, I would say the two that come to mind that we haven't already talked about. I mean, so yes, the defense, the homeland security lensing to what we do is there. I mean, if you think about it, FEMA is housed within Homeland Security, which is housed within DoD. So, climate risk is one of the top defenses. The DoD considers one of the top risks to national security, right? So we're well in that bucket. Then the other lensing is really around insurance, which I have historically pushed away because we have this community of users who are giving us data, and we have this do no harm policy, right? Which is like, hey, if you give me your data, I'm not going to use that data against you in terms of increasing the cost of your insurance policies or endangering your real estate value. Like, that is something we take very seriously. But these newer forms of parametric or community insurance, we're growing fastest in the parts of the country where traditional insurance is failing: Louisiana, Florida, California. And what we're seeing is a real opportunity around that. And it's super early. I don't want to announce anything, but maybe next year we have something big to talk about. We really understand the value of this live data coming in, triggering particular payouts, if it's classified right, if it's validated correctly, last mile delivery to the customers. So yeah, it's an exciting space. I'd say when there's market failure, there's market opportunity.
Wow. I am not surprised that a solution like this has been incredibly valuable. I feel like there's maybe a unique dynamic that I'd love to hear if exists, where places where insurance has left, right? Everyone heard about the places where now it's too expensive or people are not providing the typical insurance, right? Are you seeing that there's more value in places where insurance or other services aren't existing, or are you finding more collaboration where other types of data sources exist? I guess I'm asking, is it easier to expand and build up new markets, or is it easier to go where places already have things happening on the data and prediction front? Thanks for listening so far. To get the full episode, go over to Substack and become a Clean Techies premium member by selecting any paid membership. Not only will you get access to hear the rest of this episode, but you'll get access to exclusive interviews, our monthly show, the best, most relevant insights from our shows, and access to our premium community.